We all know that tailbone injuries can be extremely painful and sore. Steph Curry unfortunately found this out after falling in tonight's game against the Rockets. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dr. Brian Sutterer, and this is your #1 source for learning about the unique medical side of the world of sports. Injury Firsts are always neat opportunities on the channel to teach you guys something new, something we haven't covered and won't typically cover, and a tailbone injury like this definitely fits that. We'll talk about the anatomy and what exactly the tailbone is, and then some parts of why these are so painful, including why it hurts to even do things like go to the bathroom. As always, if you enjoy learning about this unique side of sports, please consider subscribing to the channel, and let's get started. After Curry took this shot, he was unfortunately falling backwards out of bounds, and you can see this kind of metal step here that he tripped over, that he ultimately landed on, that caused him to injure his tailbone. Now, you can't really see the actual landing, but if you look at the trajectory of where Curry is falling, it's like, as we'll see later, right on the bone of the tailbone. After Curry rolls onto his side here, you can see he's grabbing right exactly at the tailbone. I mean, this looks like an unpleasant spot, but he's grabbing very focally point right on the bone that is the tailbone that we'll talk about here in a little bit. As we look to our biodigital anatomy tool here, I have the entire vertebral column. I've got the bones of the hips, and then I have the legs because we're going to add in some muscles later on. The tailbone is technically the very bottom of that vertebral column with a segment of fused bones called the coccyx. Of course, here we're going to have our lumbar vertebrae as we go down. We're going to have our sacrum, which is another section of fused vertebrae. And then all the way down at the very bottom of the sacrum is this tiny little tip of bone. That's going to be the coccyx, or the tailbone as it's referred to. You can see there's kind of some individual little segments here. As we develop, these are initially not fused together, but then throughout our development, they fused where they essentially function like one solid bone throughout our adult life. If you look at this from the side, you can see just how darn sharp and kind of protruding this coccyx is. So if we go back to the sequence when Curry fell, imagine that sharp point basically coming down here and landing, boom, straight on that very hard metal surface. Now, you can fracture your coccyx, but it's pretty rare. It's something I've never seen. The preliminary diagnosis for Curry is a tailbone contusion, meaning just basically a bruise of this bone. Your classic sit bones that if you're sitting right now, you're putting all your weight through, you have one on each side, and it's called the ischium. It's this rounded portion of bone right here, and we have one on the right side, and we have one on the left side. Whenever you just feel kind of up under your butt on the outside, that firm bone that you're pushing on, that's your ischium. And your body is designed for your body weight and your load to be transmitted through there whenever you're sitting on a seat. Now, the ischium is, of course, relevant because that's going to be the area where our hamstring muscles actually attach onto. This is why sometimes people who have hamstring tendinopathy, if it's at the proximal or origin site up here, will have pain when they sit because they're attached to that ischium or to that sit bone. Now, of course, the other important muscles back here are going to be our glutes, the biggest of which being the G max, and that's going to originate here off of the sacrum, a little bit of the pelvis. And while this anatomy program doesn't show it the best, it actually does attach to the sacrum, but it doesn't really give you optimal coverage. And so that's why whenever you do fall and hit it, it's basically skin and then bone. There's not really much muscle there to cushion the impact to prevent you from landing on that really sharp surface. So now there's this mystery of why it hurts when you try to go to the bathroom. I think if you've had a tailbone contusion, you felt this. And it's not because when you're sitting on the toilet, you're putting pressure on that bone. It's because of other muscles that are attaching to the coccyx. We have a group of muscles called the levator ani that basically sit in the floor of our pelvis and help provide some stability to those pelvic organs, to the rectum, and so on. And those levator ani muscles attach to the coccyx. And so these muscles are going to be active whenever you're sitting and going to the bathroom. And so those muscles contract and pull on the tailbone. And so if you've got an injury there, that's why it hurts when you go to the bathroom. Again, it's not because you're putting pressure on it. It's because the muscles that you're activating to help go to the bathroom attach to it and pull on the bone whenever you're going. Now, while these can be very painful, as pointed out by Jeff Stotts on Twitter, really the average amount of time missed is not very long in the NBA. They can have some prolonged pain that can be very debilitating, something called coccydynia, but assuming they don't find a fracture on a CT scan, this should run the normal course, and I wouldn't expect Curry to be out for much time, really, hopefully beyond just a game or two. So there you have it, more than you ever thought you needed to know or wanted to know about tailbone contusions. Anytime I can talk about anatomy or things that we typically wouldn't cover, I think it's a good opportunity to learn. So I hope you still found this video interesting. Let me know any questions or comments down below. And until next time, we'll see you later. Bye.